Hey there, you're listening to another round of the With Just 15 Defeats show with myself, Teekosey, and we're going to be talking about another heavyweight breakdown. This one is the bout between Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte in the last week. Much anticipated revenge match following a low-key amateur bout in which Dillian Whyte won on points. From all accounts, this is quite early in both of their amateur careers. And in something I read, it was possibly, in fact, Dillian Whyte's first amateur bout. So, can you read anything into it? Not at all. Not even worth really talking about, to be perfectly honest. So, we're just going to stroll on to the fight itself. In the last Joshua fight, we had Dillian Whyte on the undercard against some bum who he pushed over, and wasn't a great fight, to be perfectly honest. But the whole night was built up to basically promote the fight between the two guys as a real grudge match. So we then move on to the fight, and the fact that it was pay-per-view. A lot of people have been discussing whether it was worthy of pay-per-view. To be honest, there were a number of high-profile guys on the card, but was the main fight worthy of pay-per-view? The fact that the two guys are both relatively short into their careers. The fact that Dillian Whyte has been out for a number of years following his suspension from the sport, and he's only had a couple of fights in. Probably not, to be perfectly honest. And the fact that Dillian Whyte isn't a household name. Joshua is such a high-profile name. You can just see that from the way that the crowd reacted when the two guys came out for the fight, and we actually saw a bit of pantomime booing for Dillian Whyte and some eruption of a cheer for when Joshua finally got into the ring. So he really is building that profile, and the guys at Matchroom must be getting really excited about the paper they're going to make over the next year. And by all accounts, they must have been slightly nervous in the second round of this fight. But anyway, we're going to move on to the fight. But briefly, we'll just look at the fact that the records of the two guys, they're both undefeated going into this fight. Anthony Joshua had dispatched all of his opponents by knockout, and some of them in devastating fashion. I mean, we haven't seen a heavyweight be this violent and this devastating this early in his career for quite some time. And that's partly why the excitement is really building around this guy. The fact that he's got the looks, the ripped physique, and he really is going to make some money if he can continue to win and move towards that world title in a way that Tyson Fury probably won't. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. We'll move on to the fight. And as we know, it was a stoppage, so we only had seven actual rounds. So personally, I actually gave Dillian Whyte 2 of the rounds. The rest went to Joshua with his stoppage in the 7th. But let's go round by round briefly for this half a fight. The first round started with AJ. He started the pressing, throwing lots of lefts. He was backing up Dillian Whyte, and he was really going for it. He landed a cracking punch, and he jumped on Whyte, really landing combinations, and he was backing him up around the ring. Whyte was basically jogging backwards. He was evading some of the punches, but he was taking a lot. And to be perfectly honest, another referee and another punch, the fight would have been stopped. I think most people will probably think that. I was watching the fight and I was thinking, one more and we could see a stoppage, another early stoppage, which is no good for Anthony Joshua. He doesn't need that. It's not going to help him in the long run if he keeps winning fights in the first round. Doesn't learn anything. Does not learn a thing. It's just one thing I noticed almost straight away. We had Jim Watt. He was criticising White after about a minute. It was pathetic. I don't know why he decided to do that. Yes, we know Anthony Joshua is such a beast. He's a phenom, and he's probably going to go on to stop so many people. But he was basically saying that White wasn't a boxer. He couldn't do this, couldn't do that. I don't know. He did well in brief patches in this fight, and he was able to box relatively well. It's just a different type of boxing. But he continued this throughout the fight, where unnecessary criticism, I personally felt. But anyway, we get to the end of the round, and it was the melee that is kind of almost a talking point of this whole fight, where the end of the fight came, Joshua threw a punch, and then Dillian Whyte, he was not happy, and he threw a couple of punches, and then as they got into the corner, he just threw another one over the top. It was way after the event. It wasn't punching after the bell. This was going forward and making a statement. The whole ring got flooded with guys from both sides, and they were held in the corners. And this must have upset the apple cart. It must have really upset the situation for Anthony Joshua. Because he came out in the second round, and it just wasn't the same. He'd almost blown his wad in the first round by trying to have the finish, then the melee at the end of the round, and we're going into the second round. And White he started to establish a jab. He started to bop and weave, throw a few punches, jabs to the midsection, trying to follow through with power punches. And that was until AJ landed another shot, which was basically a violent uppercut. Really was a violent uppercut. And again, the fight could have been over. White went into defence mode, backing up, trying to survive himself. He just then settled his feet, and he managed to come round with a counter flush on the chin of Joshua. And Joshua didn't crumble, but he felt it all the way to his boots. And he kind of froze for a second. He took another whacking great hook. And the fight changed in the heartbeat. And Whyte managed to get a number of shots. He tried to go in for the kill, but Joshua did just enough to evade enough flush shots. He took a few, don't get me wrong, he took a few, but he probably evaded the most damaging, and by the end of the round, he'd managed to create enough space between the two of them to kind of survive that round. So that round, we get to the end of the second round, it's one apiece from my point of view. The third round, this was quite a good round. I think both of them were probably starting to tire this early in the fight because they've both taken damage. Anthony Joshua, the first time in his career, he'd taken a significant shot. And they were both basically filling each other out. They were popping jabs. They were exchanging jabs. But for my money, Whyte was showing a lot of good movement. And then he was following up with good overhand punches. And what I noticed in this round was probably the biggest weakness in Joshua's offense and whole armory, and it's his defense. I don't know whether it's the fact that he just does not have the ability, the movement in both his head and his feet, or the fact that he has no respect for any opponent, that he will continue to attempt to move forward, his head straight, and see how that takes him. We've seen that he's taken a punch, So he doesn't have the defence to evade these punches, but he managed to suck it up and keep going. So we'll have to see in future fights whether Anthony Joshua is able to correct this, maybe offer any form of head movement and improve his footwork. We'll have to see how that goes. And for as I say, for my money, the fact that Dillian Whyte was throwing those additional punches, the combinations, he won that round for me. So for the fourth round, AJ he'd settled himself after that initial issue in rounds 2 and 3, and he started to back up Whyte. Whyte was starting to slow down, and he was moving forward, and the output of Whyte was slowing down. And his defence was mixed. He was evading a number of the shots from Joshua, but he was taking some stiff jabs throughout that round. So we're giving that to Joshua fairly comprehensively, to be perfectly honest. The fifth round comes in, and it's the same, but it's even more dominant from Joshua, and there just wasn't enough coming back, if anything coming back, from Whyte. But he was still in it. He was still coming forward towards Joshua. It wasn't one-way traffic. He wasn't running. He was coming forward, and he was ducking and diving and bobbing and weaving and trying to evade those shots. But he just wasn't offering enough of attack himself to really do anything to stop Joshua from trying to basically take him out. Then the sixth round, Dillian Whyte, he landed a few, but it really was a dominant AJ round. But again, exactly the same as the fifth round. He didn't stop coming. He didn't stop coming forward. He was pressing. He was trying to press Joshua, but really without enough hurtful, stinging shots. He was throwing the punches out there, but they weren't hurtful punches. They weren't punches that Joshua's going to think twice about moving in his own attack, particularly with what we said about the fact that he didn't really offer much head movement and he was putting his head out there to be punched. And really, if Whyte had a lot more in the tank, he would have been able to take advantage of that. I think he's capable when he has the power to do so. Now we move into the final round, which we saw the knockout, and it all started with a cuffing kind of swinging in over the ear on top of the temple, right hand, and Dillian Whyte's legs just gave up. He did a little silly dance, and that was it. I think when we saw that dance, I think everyone that was watching it knew it was a matter of time before Joshua just took him out, and there was a number of punches before we saw a violent uppercut. And it just lights out, see you later, good night, see you next week situation for Whyte. And he landed on the ropes and he was almost motionless, and the referee was ready just to basically protect him, take the mouth guard out and get the guys in to sort him out, because it was all over. Devastating. So we've seen another devastating stoppage from Anthony Joshua. Really, it's quite remarkable. It was 16 out from every fight. He's really looking the real deal. We've now seen him in probably his only competitive fight. His only competitive fight in his career. The previous fight against Gary Cornish, who knows how that would have gone if he hadn't basically sparked him so early. But this was his real first competitive fight. He took damage, he sucked it up, he recovered, and he dispatched his man with a violent pleasure. So this fight really was quite a fun fight in all respects, because we had two big chaps, both wanting to throw bombs, both did throw bombs, both created and landed damage, and it could have gone either way. It genuinely could have gone either way. Both guys could have stopped their man in this fight. But Joshua got the win, and he keeps his O, and he keeps his 100% knockout ratio going, and he moves on towards bigger and greater fights. So I'm just going to have a little word about where the two guys go from here. So firstly, our man Dillian Whyte, he did a lot of good for himself. As I said at the start of the show, a lot of people wouldn't have known who this guy is. He didn't have a particularly impressive fight in the previous fight, which was televised on the previous Joshua undercard. I don't think many people would have got that excited about it. And the fact that I think most people thought he would get stopped within a round or two based on that performance says it all, really. But he's shown himself to be a capable guy with some serious punching power. And there's a lot of guys in the division, heavyweight division, that he will be able to beat fairly easily. I wouldn't be surprised that if, with the right management and promotion, that Dillian Whyte couldn't go towards a world title level. And there's a lot of guys out there who he will be able to dispatch. You just have to look around the globe at the heavyweight division and see that how many guys have got protected records. It's ridiculous, and they haven't fought anyone like these sort of guys. So if he's promoted well, he could have a few good fights and make his way up to getting the chances. And the fact that this fight was such an entertaining fight, I'm sure that a number of people would have come round to Whyte, and they'll be happy to watch this guy again, because he will be an interesting guy. And he could be like, I don't know whether he's a combination of possibly Danny Williams and possibly Derek Chisora, like a combination of what those two guys offer. And we'll basically see what he's got to offer in the future. But he's definitely British level, he's definitely European level. There's a lot of guys in Europe that he would be able to dispatch. So we'll have to see. We'll see how it goes. But for the golden boy, Anthony Joshua, where does he go from here? A lot of people will be saying, "Oh, we want to see him in with Tyson Fury." Absolutely no chance. Tyson Fury's won his belts, and he deserves to be fighting big world title fights to define his own personal legacy. And whether he can do that or not, we'll see how it goes. Other people have been talking about David Haye. Again, if David Haye is at the sort of level that he was when he won the heavyweight championship, now that was a long time ago, and he has had a number of years out, but if he's anywhere near the level of where Haye was when he won the title, my money would be on Haye to stop Joshua. I think he just has too much movement, too much explosive power. He'll be able to evade the shots, and I think he would stop Joshua if he is at that level. But as we say, we don't know where Haye is, and the fact that he's fighting some bum, we still won't know. We still won't know, to be perfectly honest. But all we'll know is that whether he's in good shape. But we know that Haye's in shape. He's always in shape. So for my choice for Joshua, I think he needs to be fighting average caliber guys, possibly higher level than what he's been fighting to date. He can't be fighting anyone like these guys that he's been fighting, Sprott and whoever else that are just in there for a few quid. He has to be fighting people that are at least European level. As I alluded to just a few moments ago, there's a lot of guys in Europe, the Russians and the Germans, that have got protected records. It's just silly. You just have to go on a BoxRec and check them out. There's so many guys that have got between, I don't know, 18 and 40 wins and undefeated runs. It's ridiculous, and they've fought nobody. They've literally fought nobody. So there's so many guys out there that would be interesting opposition for him. But I feel that Eddie Hearn may start to rush him now, because the pound notes are starting to flood in. They're going to want to start cashing in on this guy. It's going to be difficult to sell fights against guys that we don't, the general public don't know, that they don't know, and that there isn't a story, i.e. a revenge story, whatever. It's going to be very difficult for Eddie Hearn to sell those fights. So I think he's going to be looking towards the Chisora fight as soon as possible, and then the David Haye fight. For me, I think it's too early. I genuinely think it's too early. Now, AJ could beat both of them. I said that at the moment, if the fight is tomorrow, Haye wins if he's at the form that he was, but we don't know whether he is. Chisora, I feel so sorry for Chisora. He's the almost man. He's been the almost man. Like how he got those runner fights a couple of years ago for British, European, and world, and the fact that he kept losing and then getting rewarded by another one is quite incredible. But he seems like quite a nice guy. He's quite an entertaining chap. He's shown in some of the fights some real good skill, good heart. But whether he's now on the decline, we just don't know because hasn't had anyone of any note in the last couple of years. But I would say that it'd be much better for Joshua to fight a couple of Europeans and then possibly lead into Chisora, possibly at the end of next year. That's end of 2016, before moving into 2017 and then really getting the tasty big fights. So we're talking about getting into possibly 20-0 before we move into anyone like Haye or anyone on fringe world level. That's what I feel. So anyway, if you've got this far, I hope you've enjoyed it. I don't know whether you'll agree with how I saw the fight. You may not. But if you've got any comments, leave them in the comments section below. Please subscribe to my channel because I'll be updating this with some other regular content with heavyweight breakdowns in the future. I'm probably also going to do a preview of the Haye Demori fight and a few other ones. I'll probably be doing some other heavyweight breakdowns. I might do some older ones, possibly just to build up some content. And then we're going to be probably adding a range of other stuff as and when we have the time. But as I say, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you down the road.